Good morning and welcome back to Russell Does Stuff. My name is Russell and I work 6 hours on Monday, 6 hours on Tuesday, and whatever I don't get done on those 2 days, I finish up on Wednesday. That way I have Monday afternoons off, Tuesday afternoons off, then I have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday off. I was asked if I would do a deeper dive into financial freedom. And today's the day. It's been raining like cats and dogs, and we've had a lot of lightning. So I'm inside the shop today doing this video here for you guys. As you know, in some of the previous videos I explained, what I did before I got into this business. I'm not going to go into that on this video. So financial freedom, being debt-free. What did I do and what was my plan? Well, I realized that working for someone else was a dead end, okay? In my situation, some people have 40 or 50 hour a week jobs that pay a lot of money, okay? I could never get a job like that because I didn't have an education, I didn't have a college education. And, for $100,000 a year jobs, a lot of those jobs want that kind of background in their employees, okay? That wasn't me. I wasn't what most of those places were looking for. So, 7 o'clock in the morning, I quit the job I was working at because the owner was being dishonest. I clicked my heels, turned around, walked down the end of the driveway, and drove off into the sunrise. I found myself without a job, with no money, and no plan. What I did was I started a business. I had no tools, no customers, I had transportation, and my name. My name became the name of the business, Russell. People wrote Russell checks. I knew here I never wanted to work for someone else ever again. And it's my fault for being in those type of positions. I take responsibility for everything. There's two thumbs on my hands and, I'm pointing at me. So what I needed to do in order to reach the goals I wrote down for myself, which was financial freedom and to be debt-free. I didn't want anybody ever to tell me again, you're fired, or you can't work here, or you can't live there, you can't eat here, you can't do this or that. I was done. How was I gonna get that kind of freedom? Well, I wanted to start a business. I have to build up that business. I have to grow that business. How am I going to do that? I did it through sacrifice, hard work, drive, and determination. I was the most determined person in the room, okay? That was my mindset. I want it more than everyone else does. So I had to make a plan for financial freedom after I built up the business some. How much money is this bringing in? How much monopoly money do I have to play with? I decided that I wanted to buy a piece of property. I figured out how much money I had to play with, and that determined the type of property I could buy. Well, I knew I wanted a 3-bedroom house with 2 baths and 2 car garages. Okay? I did the numbers on the internet. I got on the internet and typed everything up and did the sliding scale of how much down, how much your mortgage is going to be. So I had an idea what this goal was going to cost me. So once this saved up enough money for that goal, I called a real estate agent. I told him what I was interested in. I said, I want to buy a house. I want a cheap house. I don't want a 1-bedroom and 1-bath house. I want a normal sized house. I think I fired 2 real estate agents because they kept showing me mansions and very large houses. It wasn't part of my plan for being debt-free and having financial freedom. This wasn't a multi-million-dollar company. And if it was, I wouldn't want a big house like that anyway. They're too hard to clean, all right? So I found a real estate agent that would show me foreclosed houses and distressed properties. I had picked out a few of these that I liked. I looked at the location. Is it good for my business? The surroundings, is the neighborhood upcoming, all the factors I determined, used to determine which one I picked. So I landed on one of the properties. We negotiated with the bank. Yes, you can negotiate with the bank. Okay. So we came up with the deposit, put the money down. We liked the amount per month for the mortgage, and we signed on the dotted line and we bought a property. Okay. It was a manageable mortgage payment. This could pay for that. All right? Amazing how that works. Okay? But you got to do this for a little bit in order to do that. Okay? It just doesn't all happen like lickety split. All right? So, now that we're paying a mortgage for 30 years that the bank owns, we don't own that property, the bank does. You quit paying on it, they'll come over with a moving truck and sweep you right out the door. All right? I said to her, let's come up with a plan to pay this house off. And I told her, this is my wife, I said, this is what I think is the best way to do that. I said, let's pay off all our low-hanging debt first. Doctor bills, credit card debt, okay? So we paid all those low-hanging fruit debt stuff off, okay? That lowered the amount of money going out the door, all right? I said, let's go down and buy vehicles. I went and bought a brand new work truck. I bought the ugliest truck that was on the lot, the cheapest work truck on the lot. Guy asked how I want to pay for it. I said, I want to finance it. For the longest amount of months I could finance that truck for, I did. Why? Because I wanted a small payment. Okay? Same thing with the wife. She went out and bought a Jeep. Stretch them months out, baby. I want a small payment. I'll explain to you why I wanted that up here. Okay? We go over to here, step 7, in my plan to be debt-free and have financial freedom. I said, come up with some sort of a spreadsheet on what will it take each month to pay off this house in how many years. Okay? So 3 or 4 days, we were working out how many months and how many years I wanted to attempt paying this house off. I needed a plan, like the sales process. Okay? So we settled on 3 years. Okay? I'm going to take a certain amount of money and apply it towards the mortgage every month for 3 years. Okay? That just barely left enough money in the account to buy materials and stuff for jobs and stuff, just enough to run the business. Okay? Sometimes I found I didn't have enough money to make that payment towards the mortgage. Sometimes it was $1,000 less. Okay? So during those 3 years, I was approached with an opportunity to buy some accounts to add to my company. So I stopped paying the mortgage payment stop paying the mortgage off for 3 months or so while I paid off these accounts. These accounts put more money in the engine of my business, okay? And I was delaying paying off the house for what I felt, and it was a good reason, and it was a good decision. So once I paid off those accounts, now I had more money. So I went right back to paying the house off, okay? It took maybe 3 or 4 months into the 4th year to pay the house off. I went into the office and I said, what's left? Because I knew there was going to be something left at the end. Okay, there always is, all right? Because how I structured the chunks that I wanted to put towards the mortgage, I knew that I should have paid a little bit more a month, you know, to meet that 3-year goal, but I was playing a trick on myself, you know. I wanted to trick myself into paying most of it off like I did here with these car payments, all right? I had like $10,000 left, and that's what I figured I'd have about left over after I paid, you know, consistently. You got to do it. You can't skip unless you have a really good reason. You know, I'm going on vacation. I'm not going to pay that payment towards the house. You'll kick yourself in the shin by doing that later on. So we gave them the $10,000 remaining, whatever the cents and numbers were. Remember, they don't want you to pay your house off. It's hard. We spent hours and hours and hours telling them that money was towards the principal, okay? It's not next month's mortgage payment, you know. It's like they took a piece of paper and wrote, Russell wants to pay his house off, and slapped it all over their mortgage office on every wall. Let's not let Russ pay his house off. It was the biggest pain in the butt in the world to try to pay your house off. They don't want you to do it. I thought I paid my house off. They disagreed with me. They said, well, you know, we looked at the moon and the stars and the sun, and we determined that, you know, you owe us for three hours and 20 minutes worth of interest or something. So they hit us up with another $3 and something. So we paid another $3 or whatever. Then you want to get your paperwork that says, hey, you own this house. That's a pain in the butt too. You know, you're not their first priority. So paying off a house is a big achievement, all right? There's a guy called Dave Ramsey. You pay your house off, you call in, and he'll celebrate your victory, you know. I knew that. I used to listen to Dave Ramsey, you know, and that was fuel for me to keep moving forward with paying off this property. You know, I was listening to him. He was firing me up, you know. So I decided I'm going to call Dave Ramsey and tell him what I did. They ignored me. They could have cared less. You know, there's bugs in here. They could have cared less if I paid my house off or not. Oh well, I don't care. Big deal. All right? So now that I did that, what's my next move? Well, my next move was to buy the land behind it. Okay? So got a real estate agent, one that cares about what I want to do and puts my interests and my thinking, you know, ahead of, you know, her commissions and I don't want to let anybody know I sold a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house to anybody, you know. People want to, I sold multi-million-dollar properties, you know, whatever. That's your thing, that's your thing. So I bought the property behind my house. What did I do? I just added value to that house I just paid off. Wow, I increased the backyard. Now my property is unique. Okay? People are going to buy this place before they buy someone else's. All right? So after I paid that off, I would come back in here and I would sit in a chair and drink a beer. I couldn't see more than 3 feet in front of me, but it was mine. All right? I knew one day I was going to build a shop here. All right? And I did. But I didn't call the bank and, hey, I want to take some equity out of my house and do it. No, I delayed gratification. I did something else that was hard. I saved up for the shop. I paid cash for it. All right? I still did automotive repair work in my driveway while I was saving up money to buy this place. I did not do home improvement projects on this house. Wasn't part of the plan. I didn't paint it. I didn't do this and I didn't do that. Sure, I'd put some leftover landscaping, around the house from the jobs I was doing, or some sod or whatever. I would fix what's broke. I probably put 4 well pumps on this place, I did upgrade the kitchen for $1,500. I was in the cabinet business. So knockdown cabinets don't cost that much. It made the wife happy, I don't want to hang lots of pictures everywhere because this isn't our permanent thing, I don't want to go around patching a million holes and having to repaint the house. Paint's expensive nowadays, So that's how I did it. I don't owe anybody anything. I'm debt free. The only person that can kick me out of the house here is Mother Nature. It didn't happen overnight. It took a few years. Okay? Hard work and determination. Okay? I fixed my credit. I own land. I own a house. I own my vehicles. I own everything. Now there's some influencers out there that don't own nothing. And they leverage what they have to own, they leverage what they have to not own something else, I didn't want to do that. Hey, you're late with your rent. Gotta go. No more. You can do this. I did it. All right? Anybody can do this. Maybe get a smaller house, but make sure that it increases in value and it has, people will want to buy it off of you. You never know what's going to happen. You may move. Somebody, might need you and offer you an opportunity in another state. You want to be able to sell that to somebody, and it better be something someone else wants. I've made that mistake buying things people don't want. You sit on it, and then you lose money on it. So this is what a little deeper dive into how I did it looks like. It's not rocket science. You have to be the most determined person in the room. Some of you out there, you could do all this by working for someone else, But you need to have at least $100,000 or more in order to do this. And some people, you can do this with a salary or what you're getting paid working for someone else. I'm not saying you have to start a service business, but I had no choice. All right. I was a $40,000 a year man. Nobody was going to pay me $100,000 to work for them. All right. So, well, this is Russ, and this is Russell Does Stuff. And if you like this kind of stuff, like and subscribe. If you're just passing through and this ain't your thing, come back in a couple weeks. I'm doing a video on an investment I made, and we're going to see if that was a bad idea or a good idea. I'm going to try to shoot the best video I can and explain everything the best way I can to everyone. And maybe that'll be something you like. Stop by, check that video out. It'll be a series, hopefully. Until the next one, this is Russell with Russell Does Stuff.